Sorry, that was probably a bit loud. Coming up in 8 minutes or so, people. Whiskey Galore. So if you're watching an archive version, you might want to fast forward. Hey, you might want to fast forward if you're watching an archive version to the top of the show. David H. Timms coming on today. Gonna have a chat about, I don't know, chewing the cud, you know, quarantine, stuff that's going on. And this, that, and the other. I don't know. Goodness only knows. Drinking what kind of whiskey or whatever. David, can you hear me, sir?
I can. Can you hear me?
Oh, yeah, I can. Oh, excellent. And a great picture as well. Thank you. Okay, terrific. Okay, people, coming up in just a few minutes. So catch you then. Please share the show. Tell you what, David, you got a cracking beard, mate. That's a lovely beard. I like that beard.
Thank you.
God bless you.
We go.
You know what? I'll tell you what. That's a bit hectic for me today. That's a bit hectic. Oh no, that's just as bad. Hold on. What's this? There we go. Hey Jay. Jay Carey. We're streaming on YouTube.
Olly Connelly.
Mate, we're streaming on YouTube and you've just cut out my audio. Bless you. Here, look, let me send you a link to the Zoom thing. I'll send you a link to that.
Well, before you do that, I want you to send me I want to do something with your website. I'm sick of it now. I'm gonna build your website for you.
Oh man, oh that's beautiful. Look, will you come on? I'll send you a link because you're ruining this copyright-free music.
Oh damn! What a pity, eh?
Yeah, I know. It's dreadful, isn't it? I'll send you the link on Zoom and you can join David and me.
Right. Okay.
All right. God bless you, mate. Mr. Carey. Now hold on. Where is the music? Where is the music? Did you hear that? dailychaos.news might actually get launched. Three minutes, people. 3 minutes. H. Timms coming up on Daily Chaos in about 2 minutes' time. I'm sorry. What a load of old cock. You know what I mean? Here we go. Barry White. Blimey, I'll tell you what, that was absolutely dreadful. Better do it. Hey folks! Good afternoon, good evening, good morning, good people. Welcome to the Daily Chaos. Ordo ab ruddy chao. Know what I mean? Yeah. And today, whiskey galore. I got David H. Timms here, popped on from Facebook. God bless him. Jay Carey's popped in. Apparently he's going to build me a website. A website that I've been building for well over a year. I don't know, 2 years. We're just going to cut the breeze, you know. We're just going to have a chat. I don't know, try and chivvy each other up or something like that. You know, talk about, you know, how much cleaning we did today. Compare whiskey. Do you know what I mean? How much whiskey do you need to consume to be able to ignore the news? Oh, right. Okay. David H. Timms, good afternoon, sir. Good evening. You're in Blighty, eh? Whereabouts are you?
It's good afternoon still. I'm in sunny Alnwick at the moment.
Where's that? Excuse my ignorance.
You don't know where Alnwick is? Okay. Northumberland, just north of Newcastle.
Oh, all right. Lovely, lovely. Yeah, this was a bit of an experiment, people, in a way. Daily Chaos has kind of changed slightly over the last, basically since where I am in Spain, since we went into quarantine, or just a few days before when it was announced. And as you know, at the time, I was just doing Daily Chaos once a week then. With the impending quarantine, it was clear that it was going to happen and all the rest of it off the back of what was happening in Italy and, you know, South Korea and whatnot, and that it was sort of sweeping across the planet. I just thought, well, what do I do? What do I do? So I thought, you know what, I'll do this show 6 times a week, Monday to Saturday. And it's really, more than anything now, a chance for just people to, you know, call in from all over the world. We've had folks from all over the world over the last couple of weeks or whatever. Want to continue to do that. Just sharing their experience, finding out what's going on, how they're coping and all that, and hopefully having a few laughs Well, I kind of suspect a few tears over the course of the next several months or whatever as well. And David H. Timms popped up on my timeline the other day, and we've been connected on Facebook friends for quite a while, and he just says some interesting things, and I looked at his timeline and I thought, I want to get this guy on the show because he's got a good face. And so let me try and show you that face. David, tell me, how long does it take to grow a beard like that?
I'm trying to get it all into shots so people can see.
I'll do that. I'll do that for you.
It takes about 2 years.
That's 2 years growth. Is that all?
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow. That is not as long as I would have thought. There was a story, I think I read, being a news fiend. I was looking at all the news tabs, and I did catch something caught my eye, some comment piece or whatever, that people must remember to shave now that they're in home quarantine. But you, sir, must not. Only 2 years. That's amazing. David, what are your reflections in general terms, please? Just some chap out of the blue who I'm just getting to know for the first time. We've never spoken before. What are your thoughts about where we are today, now, going forward?
Well, I kind of referred you back to some of my previous posts on the Facebook timeline. So from my perspective, I kind of said this was coming, and I was not the only one who said this was coming. Anyone who was looking at China and what was happening there and all of the circumstances and just the sheer panic, chaos, they could see that this was heading.
Oh, David, you're breaking up slightly there.
Countries just as quick as people could basically transfer the virus to other people once they're there. It was very much that possibility. I'm not saying that in terms of, I thought it's a deliberate transfer, but it was certainly predictable. Are you still there? Have I gone?
What? First of all, your audio is not great. So let's see if we can do something about that. Can you just jiggle your jack about the what is it, 3.5 mil jack or whatever for your microphone or whatever it is you're using? Just hopefully that'll help. Because I want you heard, sir.
Are we still on? Oh, there we are.
Yeah, we are.
Yeah. This is the first time I've used Zoom in terms of talking to someone as remote as you, and there is a time delay on what I'm hearing myself say and you picking up on it. And I also think really? Zoom is dropping intermittently as well. It's done it twice now within about,
right. In that case, what I want to do, David, please, I'm going to kick you off, and I want you to click back on the link to try and come in again, and hopefully we'll get a better connection, because Zoom is normally better than this, even though they steal all of our data apparently and give it to Facebook. That was a story yesterday. Zoom, you know what, had better faith in you, but nonetheless the system is superb on Zoom, and it's normally better than this. So David, would you mind if I kick you off, because I want you to be heard?
Yeah.
And then please click that link again straight away, and let's resume this. Thank you, sir. Thank you. Right. Okay. So he's gone, but I want to find out more about that. What about you? We've got Boozy here, and we've got Jay Carey here. Jay, maybe if you tell me your thoughts first, please. David was basically saying there that this came as no surprise to him. That we are in the situation we're in now. I want to ask him when his suspicions were really raised that this virus was going to get out and about, as it were. What are your thoughts on that, Jay?
I agree. I expected it since 2016. I mean, we knew it
Why?
was either gonna-
That's a long time ago.
Oh yeah, but you know what happens when you talk to people? Nobody listens. Everything's going well.
Why
until
so long?
Why so long? What?
Why so long ago? That was before this virus. I don't know. Somebody drank their bat soup or escaped from a laboratory or whatever happened.
Well, realistically, there's only two ways this could have happened. If you follow the plan, Alexander Pike, is it? He says there's a third world war and it's going to involve a fight between minorities and the indigenous. Both will be too exhausted, and at that point we can walk in and introduce a new world order. But it looks like they've changed it now to and we knew it was going to be either a pandemic or a war. It's one of the two.
So you think your thoughts are that this is a plandemic?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, even the timings are 1918 Spanish flu. Excuse me, 1820. What was that? Black Plague or the oh no, it wasn't. It was the bubonic plague. That was it. It's so 1720, 1820, 1918, 2020 coronavirus.
That could be coincidental.
It could be, yeah, but it's 600-year coincidence since 1518.
Hold on a sec. Oh no! David is saying, because you removed me, I can't get back in through the same link. Oh, what a plonker. Carey, do you know how to use Zoom?
Gary? Yeah, I know how to use Zoom, yeah.
What do I need to do to get David back on?
What, you want to add him again?
Yeah.
Let's see. You can click the invite button.
Yep, done that. And what it's done is to give me the link, which is the same link as before. So I don't think that's going to work. Please try it, David. Oh, what a cock up. I do apologise. Daily chaos. Right. So what else can I do? I've got the invite. There's no other way, is there? Unless I close Zoom and set up a new meeting.
No, I think there's actually a setting where if you in Zoom and if in there it says that allow people to rejoin if after booting, because I think there's a thing in there so that if you kick someone out, if someone's removed, you stop. Yeah. They can't rejoin. But there's there's a setting there that allows you to do that.
You know what though, Busy? The problem with that is that you have to do that online, not with the app. And so, right, what I'm going to do is I'm going to close this Zoom meeting, set up a new one, and send you all the link. That is the only way, because I want to get David back on.
You started early. Well, you didn't actually. You started on time, but you always had to have some chaos, didn't you?
Yeah, got to have some chaos. All right, okay. God bless you. Thank you very much indeed, Jay, Boozy, David. I'm going to send you all the link right now. I apologise. So I've just got rid of all of them, and now I will try and be more useful. And would really like a desk producer, people, if anybody has need. Right, okay. So now I should have. Right. Try that, David. Try that link. Hopefully that'll work. Oh, what a plonker. I do apologise, people. Let's just have a quick look. And there we go. That should be working. That should work now, people. That should work. So I'll send that link to Jay as well. And I'll send it to Boozy. That's Chris Boozy, stateside in California, who's in quarantine at the moment. Suspected coronavirus patient. And just whilst I'm waiting for those folks to join, so that you know, tomorrow, got Mark Windows coming on. Mark Windows, very well known. We'll be talking along the lines, actually, of what Jay Carey was just saying, that this is a plandemic, or at least that it is being used, or maybe being used, to lead us into some kind of totalitarianism. And we're talking about, for example, cashless society, China-type model of control where self-employment is eroded and people are dependent on the state with a basic state income and all that kind of stuff that has been parroted throughout the mainstream media, part of the narrative over the last few years. Whether or not he's correct, I've got no idea. But I'm going to have a listen to him and see what he's got to say. Really looking forward to it. He's a lovely bloke, I know that. But he's coming on tomorrow. And on Saturday, I've got an old mate of mine called Mark Lagesse, who is in South Africa, who's going to be talking to us about South Africa and the situation going on there, which is pretty concerning, actually. If you think it looks bad in the UK or the US, I think that some of those townships in South Africa, some of those shanty towns are looking to, frankly, explode, and quite worrying. The rand has already gone down the tubes, so anyway, now nobody's getting on Zoom. Nobody can get on Zoom by the looks of it. Hold on. Oh, blimey. It is a new link, people. It should work. I'll take some comments. Right. Kenneth Noel Curran. Where we go one, we go all. Q reference. WWG1, WGA. Walking with God. God Almighty. British equals the people of the covenant. Britain equals the land of the covenant. Be wise, UK, GB, and Fide Defensor. Kenneth Noel Curran, I'm beginning to understand some of the things that you put in the comments now. I guess my brain is enlarging. I don't know. Jamie Mitchell says maybe he needs to reset his cookies. He's there. He's here. David Timms.
Sorry, it was a bit of a circuitous route.
That's all right. It's good to have you back. I apologise.
Facebook's not on my tab, so
I apologise for the cock up there. Let's hope the audio quality is better now. So you were saying that you did see this coming. At what juncture, particularly, did you see that there was going to be, without wanting to put words into your mouth, a pandemic?
It was the gradual escalation of everything. All of the news that was coming out of China was getting worse and worse and worse. And I started to listen to various online commentators that picked up on this news. And then you saw more and more people coming to the party, as it were, and putting their 2 pence in. And then there were more and more YouTubers coming on with their own spin on things. And you could just see that it was building and building and building up. And I was looking for signs of it sort of moving further out of China. And it was just a matter of time because all the planes were coming and going. There was no lockdown at that point in time. Everyone was moving away for Chinese New Year and going to various other countries and just basically being tourists and enjoying themselves. So they didn't know what was happening. They didn't know what they were doing. Some of them didn't even know they were carrying it because a lot of them were asymptomatic. So that's walking around without any symptoms that you're seeing on the news at the moment, which are extremely worrying.
Yes.
And no, it's not
up to 28 days as well. Up to 28 days in some cases before the symptoms are evident. Carry on, please.
It is absolutely possible. Yeah, it's more likely. It's sort of 7 days. I think is the general sort of rule of thumb, if you were, about how long you can possibly carry it for without there being any impact, if there's going to be an impact on your health. But yeah, it's like I was just waiting, and I was really hoping it was just going to go away. It was all going to blow over, and we weren't going to have to go through this. But I could just see it just gradually moving bigger and bigger. And I got on my phone, I think it was about the 4th of February, and I started texting people, and I said, look, there's trouble coming, and these are the things I want you to do. I want you to go out, and I want you to go and get some food. Because it's not at that point in time that I thought the food was going to run out. It's that I thought that at that point in time, you're not going to be wanting to be around people because you're going to be a potential carrier of it yourself, and you're not going to want that for yourself or your family. So get enough food in that you don't have to be out and about for many weeks at a time. And I started stocking up on food, and you've seen the pictures of my little stockpile of food for about sort of 6 to 8 weeks, which I think is reasonable.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't want to go down some of the routes of our American friends. If you go to a site called, I think it's mountainhouse.com, where they have this kind of vacuum sealed stuff that you can have on the shelf for 30 years. I did a search of their site about 4 weeks ago.
Preppers.
And it was sold out. Yeah, they're very, very big on prepping in America, and especially in the Mormon religion as well. I found out they are very big on keeping large supplies of food around. But yeah, I looked on their site about 4 weeks ago, and literally every single item was sold out in America. So they obviously knew what was coming as well. And just to give you a heads up, I also looked at some of the hunting websites, and those in the UK. And I had a look at the crossbows and the hunting equipment and stuff like that, and those had sold out as well. So people are kind of on the same page, and they're kind of looking out for themselves in terms of food first. And I think the more highly strung people are looking for protection second, and put it in those terms.
I agree with you. That, you know, to be honest with you, I'd forgotten about Chinese New Year, but you're absolutely right. When that happened, Wuhan in Hubei province was already going on, and there were already people hanging out their windows and with mournful cries. I mean, it was quite horrid. It was pretty distressing to see some of those videos on Twitter. And then the Chinese New Year happened at basically the same time, and it was like, whoa, what's going on? There's a lot of people moving about, and then there was, of course, the quarantine of Wuhan, which is what, the size of London, something like that. And then there was the quarantine of Shanghai. And when they quarantined China's capital city, it seemed to me that Western governments all over the world, needed to stop non-essential international travel from China. I just wonder, is that not what they should have done? Or is it inevitable that this this COVID-19 would have come round and knocked us all on the arse anyway, and that irrespective, it was going to do that and would have to build up a herd immunity? What do you think?
Well, let's break down those questions. Should people have stopped travelling? Yes. But who was going to tell them to do that? And I've just answered my own question. The WHO came out, the people that, you know, the doctors and everyone of that sort of ilk look to for answers in governments. And they came out with their declaration. Everything was pretty cool and dandy.
They weren't even allowed into China at that stage.
I think there's a lot more going on there than is being reported. And
you think that they're in China's back pocket?
I think that there is a strong possibility of those kinds of shenanigans. I don't think the WHO is part of the UN, and if I remember rightly, there was a panel of people who did a vote for this January 30th proclamation of, yeah, you should definitely keep trade going. Yeah, you should definitely not stop the flights.
That's right.
And I don't think everyone in that panel was on board. I think there were certain elements that had other agendas. So that answers those two questions. Sorry, what was the third part of your question? I can't remember.
Well, I mean, it's easy, maybe it's easier to say this in retrospect, but when Shanghai was quarantined, I personally was saying they should stop non-essential international flights to the hotspot, to China, basically, to all of it. And very shortly after, to Japan and South Korea, and after that, Australia as well, because it just struck me that this thing was going to spread. But on the other hand, there is an argument to say all you're doing is delaying the inevitable. And that's where this kind of herd immunity philosophy comes in. And so in a way, you're damned if you do and damned if you don't. And I'm just wondering, because there's a lot of people that are going to be picking over the political carcass of this tragedy which is unfolding, and which I think we're in the foothills of at the moment, quite clearly. I wonder, it's very easy to point fingers at people like Boris or Trump or the EU, who I can't stand, by the way. But in fairness, there is also this argument about herd immunity, and I just wonder what your thoughts are on that, sir.
There is going to be an almighty carcass to pick over when this is all said and done. There is going to be some huge repercussions, and in my view, especially for China. Had China acted 3 weeks earlier, which I believe can be proved mathematically, we would have had a 95% less impact of this. In fact, they could have actually stopped it. But there are reasons, let's put it in those terms, why things were ignored, pushed to one side, and things went silent for as long as they did. In terms of flights coming to and from places like Italy, America, China, they're still landing in the UK right now. And that really needs to stop.
Is that what sort of flights are they, David? Because I keep hearing these stories, and if they are regular flights, then that is just, well, it beggars belief. But on the other hand, if they are, for example, flying in face masks or Brits who are trying to get back to the UK or something, then those flights are understandable, no?
Yeah, flights for equipment, yes, but I believe commercial flights are still going from some countries. And yes, there are people trapped outside of the country. I have a friend in Portugal who's stuck there and has tried to get on a flight at least 4 times, and each time the flight has been cancelled. So people are trapped in other countries and unable to get home, and they're stuck in a more draconian version of lockdown in whichever country they happen to find themselves in. I mean, we are going pretty easy on the people at the moment, but that may change. Certainly in the next 2 weeks, because the next 2 weeks, it's going to escalate and it's going to get real bad, and it's not going to be good. And this is the part I didn't want. I really didn't want. It's going to reach a critical mass over the next couple of weeks, where you're going to have more people than you have the capability of dealing with. And the more people you have with less capability, it adds to the case fatality rate. And that's what you see with other countries that just don't have the medical supplies, where the doctors have been working non-stop and the nurses, and, quite rightly that they get their applause for this because they're going to go through hell as well as everyone else. So the more people that fall to this and that are part of the medical profession, the less resources you have. And in the beginning, you should have contemplated, not you, but the medical hierarchy of this country should have contemplated the number of ventilators that they had in comparison to how many people are going to get taken down with this. If you have like 1 million people go out who are needing some fairly intensive, it's not as if, people have seen this coming, and it just looks, I mean, you can see it with the graphs on Sky News last night, where UK is getting dangerously close to, how many fatalities we have as regards this disease, and Italy. And I've been saying for a while now, we're basically Italy plus, and we are heading towards that kind of a carnage, for want of a better word.
I'm afraid I agree.
I don't like it. It could have been avoided, and it could have been better handled. And this is the carcass, and I hate using that word as well, that people are going to pick over for a very long time to come. But we're in it, but this is not the worst. We're literally just starting to get towards the worst. And with that, you're going to have, there's going to be more police powers. There's going to be people that you thought, were around in the infrastructure, keeping the lights on, keeping the electricity going, that kind of thing. There's potential, and those articles have already come out, potential for power cuts, when you don't have the staff to run around and start fixing things that go wrong. You're going to start and see, how fragile society actually is when this starts to get into it. The other thing to be concerned about is food supplies. So that hasn't happened yet because people are being reasonably good and well behaved for the moment. Mm-hmm. But a supermarket carries maybe 3 days worth of food. And if anything were to happen to that infrastructure, if there was, people weren't keen on driving HGVs long distances, or, they have family to look after as well, or they fall ill, they want more money to be driving things around, then you're going to start and see supply disruptions on different kinds of levels. And that's something I am worried about. Because if we get down to that point, then society itself could actually fracture to a degree. And that is very worrying and concerning for me, watching that unfold. I hope it doesn't. I hope we don't get to that point.
Oh, sir. There are so many aspects to this, so many things to chew over there. I'm going to ask Boozy about the state of play stateside in just a minute. He's in California, but before I do, let me just take a few comments. And just for the record, so far as the UK is concerned, for those of you that are outside of the UK, just to give you an idea, in relation to what David was saying there, there are 33,718 confirmed cases according to the WHO as of yesterday. And these figures, I think you take with a pinch of salt, because probably for everyone that is known, well, that's because they've been tested, for crying out loud. Goodness knows how many times you can multiply that. But they reckon that so far there are approaching 3,000 deaths now in the UK, and the trajectory is looking sadly very Italian as well, I have to say. David Laddie, French stats are lower. How come? The stats, I don't think any of the stats can truly be tested. And another thing, just as an aside, I don't see how any of the mortality stats can be trusted either, given that, for example, the Spanish... I'm based in Spain, in Valencia. I can tell you about my quarantine here. I have done in previous shows, so I'm not going to do today. But in Spain, for example, the testing kits that, I don't know, they bought from the China shop on the corner or something, only 30% of them work. And I think it was the same in Ukraine or something. They reckon that the number of kits that actually worked was about 20%, and all the rest were duds. So how you test this? How much of this is to do with old age as well? Some of the stats and all the rest of it. Anyway, just saying, just making that little caveat there. Tanis Pullen, David, they are all hiding like they did in the war. Yellow belly. Well, okay. Well, Tanis, okay, that's an opinion there. Jamie Mitchell, and it skipped Russia. So how did this skip Russia for the most part? And Charles Spencer says it skipped Russia because the virus is in the south of China, and also Russia and even North Korea. China's borders were so bordering countries was so quick to close those borders, so quick, and yet in the West it's like business as usual. We need that Chinese supply chain. Let's just keep the profits rolled. I don't know. It's just the impression I got. Truth Seeker says head of WHO Tedros Adhanom was leader of the Communist Party in Ethiopia and was financially supported by China. Kenneth Noel Curran says year of the rat, bubonic plague, repetition or similar. And David Laddie says AZ208, AZA209, Alitalia, loads of different flight numbers coming into the UK. People dropping like flies at work, says Carlos. And Tanis Pollin, I'm crazy away. Carol, hubby, I have such a dry sense of humour. I feel for those that are suffering, though. We need a good sense of humour. Okay. Chris Boozy, in California, what is the thought set in the United States now as this epidemic gets bigger and bigger and bigger, this pandemic? And I know you're in California. I kind of suspect that California is looking at New York with a bit of a sense of dread. But on the other hand, New York is a very peculiar, or very rare city in that it's tiny, 20 square miles or something. And basically people are literally living on top of each other like, cockroaches, an ant's nest.
There is actually something rather interesting about that, and it will explain why London's going to get smacked potentially like New York. The commonality between New York and London is that it has an effective mass transit system. And that means that people are right up against each other, traveling around. So no matter what you do, if this happens, you can't close down. Even when you do close down and stop people from traveling and do whatever you've done is already too late, because by the time you found out, that one person could have infected factors of people due to the closeness and the use of, because in London, you don't drive anywhere. You get on the tube, you get on the bus, because it's just, one, it's too expensive to drive, and two, it's just so much more convenient to use the transit. Same in New York. They've got a really good transit system. Very few people drive around, or they get a cab.
In London, we're still seeing pictures. Actually, I haven't seen any for a couple of days, mainly because I haven't.
Yeah, of people on the tube.
Yeah. How many are on the metro in New York now? Because I got the impression that it was very, very few.
Well, yeah. Well, basically, New York is not. It's not being as. It's not full martial law, but there are troops on the street assisting. But the troops are still effectively under the control of civilian authorities assisting. The flip to martial law would be when either civilian forces go under military control, or the civilian forces get withdrawn and the military is in full control. While it's not full martial law if the troops are on aiding and assisting. The difference in California, our mass transit sucks. You can't rely on it. The state's a lot bigger. To get anywhere, unless you're like, when I was going to college, I used mass transit. I went to my nearest trolley station and got the trolley because it was convenient. I could get, if I went to another college campus, there was one campus, I could get what they call the Rapid, which is a express bus. One of the other campuses I can't even get to without on.
Let me just say,
it actually takes 28 hours of connection with connections and all that to get to that college campus from where I live. If I went on public transit, so because the public transit.
Chris? Oh, he's just died. Boozy? He's died. Okay, just in the comments, before I come back to David.
Francisco and San Jose, they're having the worst situation. So actually, a greater reliance on public transport for a city is actually worse.
In a situation like this, sure, makes sense. Sadiq Khan cut the tube services in half, didn't he? The London mayor.
Yeah.
And he is a mayor.
I'm going to cut the services in half.
And then guess what? The remaining. They were all huddled in to half as many tube carriages, and that was before.
And he tried using the excuse that there weren't enough tube drivers because they were all off sick.
It was before. It was before.
Yeah, but
he did it. He did it before it really kicked in. He did it before it really kicked in, when people were asymptomatic, relatively speaking.
Yes, but
I remember the timing, and I remember that excuse from him, and it was a poor excuse.
Oh no, it was a barefaced lie, because the tube drivers and the tube driver unions said, we're all sat on our asses in the tea room.
I didn't know that.
There's plenty of us. So he could have had more trains, but he's trying to disincentivize the use of it, but people still need to get there, and there is no other way to get round London.
I do wonder, I want you both to converse between yourselves, please, David and Chris, in just a sec, about whether or not this has somehow been stoked to increase the contagion. Just before we go into that, we've got a few folks in the comments asking me to talk about the body bags, and asking why I'm not mentioning them. What difference does it make, guys? I mean, we could sit here and depress everybody senseless. I'm not sure that's if you read the Daily Mail, I'm sure they'll tell you everything you want to know about the US government buying body bags and God knows what. The fact is that this David H. Timms, I do wonder, I have to say, from some of the actions or inactions that we've seen from our leaders, and bearing in mind the kind of things that Chris Boozy was just talking about, it's almost as though they're trying to stoke the problem, stoke the fire.
Is this the pause where there I am. I'm back again. Right. Hello. I'm just getting used to this. No, I've been on this show before.
Oh, God bless you, mate. It's good to have you.
In the beginning, I might have agreed with you. When the government took the advice of whoever it was that said herd immunity, and they didn't, although they're thinking of not closing the schools, because they would have used the schools as the natural transit to spread this malady around the population. Herd immunity in this scenario is insanity. Herd immunity was last used in, I think, 1972 with smallpox, but they had a vaccine back then. And so what they did is just vaccinated the hell out of everyone. And they did a vast marketing campaign, well, as big as marketing campaigns you get in 1972, to actually vaccine smallpox out of existence. And that's the last time they used herd immunity. You don't use herd immunity on something like this that has this kind of payload of utter misery and devastation, for the reason that you have a bottleneck. And the bottleneck comes with the fact that 20% of the cases of this require ICU treatment. And you can't just randomly go, yes, let's everybody have it, and then just see how the NHS just literally crumbles into a heap on the floor when they're trying to cope with case after case after case. Italy hasn't gone down the road of herd immunity, and they are struggling, and they have twice the number of medical resources that we have, and their case fatality rate is not good reading. You don't want to be letting this out to play willy-nilly with playing with people's lives. It is just the worst strategy I've ever heard of in my life, and I'm glad that they stopped it, and they did stop it. They shut down the schools. They've eventually gone into lockdown, although the people were screaming at the government saying you should put us in lockdown prior to it actually happening. And I've heard a bit of a chorus, especially from Nigel Farage, that says that Boris Johnson tends to go in front of the people that are running in a particular direction, and I'm starting to adhere a little more to that viewpoint. And the fact that he waits too long to decide which direction to go in, and he sees where the people are going, where the crowd of opinion is going, and he tends to go in front of that and then pretend as if he's leading it. That's the impression I'm kind of getting from his strategy, as it were. But no, herd immunity, not in this case, really bad move. In terms of London, I think you're going to have to look to the man in charge of London for that. And I think, other than any other agendas he may have, I'm going to go with ineptitude. I'm really just going to run with that as the whole reasoning, while that's just collapsing in an absolute mess. And it will continue to do so. It was the first epicenter, and it will probably continue to be the largest.
Chris?
Yeah, I just think there's the biggest problem we've got is that we've got two big problems. We've got one which is the public health crisis, and one which is the economic crisis caused by it. Okay, and actually what we've got to consider at some point is that the economics situation is actually going to dwarf the public health is going to be dwarfed by the economic problems caused as a
that's what Trump said, wasn't it? Don't let the cure be worse than the cause.
Yeah, and this is a big problem that we've got people like Fauci saying, well, we need to do the social distancing until such time as there are no deaths and no cases. Now, okay, there are still cases of SARS that come about, and MERS. Now, that's after their pandemics that's happened. If we're going to wait for absolute zero, that's never going to happen. Okay. Now, the reality is, a lot of people who are in the seat now are getting blamed for mistakes of the past. Like in America, after H1N1, the White House was advised that we need to restock our equipment, our face masks, all our PPE, our ventilators, all of these kind of things. We need to restock them. Okay. And that was under Obama. The lead for that was one Joe Biden. And they did jack. So the base resources were not there. And this is what we're finding in a lot of countries. The base resources have been sold off and got rid of. And then people are going to China, whose economy is booming after creating this thing. And it's not from someone eating a bat. It's come out of that lab, just like SARS. Now they're creating that for a communist state. They're really showing some capitalist thought of let's create the demand, and then we'll also create the supply to feed that demand. And they're doing, and then they're supplying substandard kit, tainted kit, and to try and make the situation even worse. I think we also need to look at, I'm studying stats at college at the moment, and I'll be blunt, none of these stats that we're getting have any statistical value.
That's right.
Whatsoever, because you're dealing with we're only going to test this small section who are going to have the most symptoms and the worst symptoms, and then we're going to work out how many people die from those small amount that we test. Or we're going to say, the death rates, we're going to record anything where anyone has any likelihood that it is SARS, any symptoms, because a lot of them aren't even get tested, but being declared as death by COVID, related to COVID. It's like so many things are being, so many of the death rates are being related, and it's like, okay, what Trump did, or tried to do, even though he's been fought left, right, and centre on this, is the historic treatment to deal with a pandemic. Lock your country down, prevent anything coming in, and deal with what happens within, and just don't let anything new in. And that's the only way you can deal with these kind of things. And when you look at the EU, EU countries, the EU countries are being basically the gun to their head is EU ideological policy, because they're not even no one's closing down the countries for travel.
Yeah, I mean, again, they were very lackluster over Schengen. Chris, let me just read, just to give people a bit of an idea. Fauci, that Chris referred to there, is the head of the coronavirus task force in the United States.
Well, deputy head. The actual head is Dr. Deborah Birx.
Oh, okay. All right.
Yeah.
It's this Fauci bloke that seems to get all the headlines. Not least of all, he's sent love letters to Hillary Clinton, and he doesn't seem to like Trump very much, but that's kind of beside the point. Fauci says, according to Summit News, Fauci says lockdown will continue until there are no new cases of coronavirus, which sounds incredible. That isn't going to be any time soon. Dr. Anthony S. Fauci says that the United States will not come out of lockdown until there are no new cases of coronavirus, prompting some to question precisely how long that will be. During yesterday's White House briefing, Fauci, who has become the face of America's response to the coronavirus, was asked by a reporter whether social distancing measures will be imposed until there is a drug or vaccine to treat COVID-19. I think, he said, if we get to the part of the curve that Dr. Birx showed yesterday, when it goes down to essentially no new cases, no new deaths at a period of time, I think it makes sense that you will have to relax social distancing. The one thing we hopefully would have in place, and I believe we will have in place, is a much more robust system to be able to... So that sounds months and months away, according to the United States' bloke there, and it all sounds very Orwellian indeed. Just another story while we're about it. Somebody in the comments...
Quickly, just talking about the American psyche, I can tell you right now, they can say what they like. The American people are going to tell them, are going to stick the proverbial middle finger up at them if this goes on. If there is no end date, the American people are going to make a decision when they feel it's safe. And they're going to completely ignore the government and the military. As we are a well-armed populace, the military are basically not going to do anything about it, because the military is going to say, we ain't getting involved, because they know full well.
Sure. Handgun sales are through the roof in the States. Gun shops remained open.
Good news on that.
Chris, hold on. Let me finish. We'll come back. We'll come back to that. But riots are being predicted in Europe as well. People are concerned about that. Just another story. People are asking in the comments. Also on Summit, Sweden begins to abandon liberal coronavirus approach as deaths surge. As many of you know, Sweden has gone the other way, and they are looking at the herd immunity approach, which Boris initially talked about. Well, not initially, because initially did nothing. They did nothing for about 2 months or 3 months. And then suddenly it was herd immunity, and then did a U-turn, and then it was like, soft martial law, wasn't it? Anyway, more fatalities than Denmark, Norway, and Finland combined in Sweden, having been one of the few European countries in the world not to impose a coronavirus lockdown. Sweden is now starting to abandon its liberal approach after a surge in deaths. Up until now, Sweden had kept schools, bars, restaurants and cinemas open, while only restricting gatherings that were over 50 people. And they're now changing tack on that. Just a couple of other tidbits very, very briefly, whilst I've got some news tabs open. Coronavirus, according to Euronews, half of humanity now on lockdown. And the Times is saying that Spain has recorded the highest reported global daily death toll as its total number of coronavirus fatalities rises to more than 10,000. The country also registered its worst ever employment figure. Surprise, surprise. There was another story in there that was less surprising that I was looking for, but I can't find it. But anyway, just some comments before we start talking about where this could lead us and what is the patience of Joe Public. Tanis Pullen says a lot of containers are still stuck at ports. They won't load or unload them. I can't wait till Biden and Trump's debate, says Jamie Mitchell. Oh man, I'm looking forward to that comedy. I so want that comedy. And I wonder if Biden isn't just going to incriminate himself and Obama and Hillary Pilderbeast, whatever, at that very debate. I can't wait. Bring it on, please. It would be hilarious. Carlos says, if there was a nuclear bomb go off, then everyone would have died from COVID-19. Carol Weston, I think bots are running Facebook and YouTube, otherwise known as Tory operators, I think, certainly so far as the Daily Brexit page is concerned. David Laddie, Diane Abbott saying all illegals in the jails should be released. She, on the other hand, should be sectioned. William Davis, Khan EU banker, ex-chancellor, ex-banker, Bundesbank, before they got drafted into UK, Theresa, ex-banker in EU, all sycophants. Smile says Fauci is a psycho. The downliner, there was no science. Their doomsday numbers were pure fiction, inept experts backed by screaming shills. David Laddie, where's that ugly, baldy, not very nice person gone that got this is so wrong in the UK? I think he must be referring to Diane Abbott. Tanis Pullen got symptoms, COVID-19. I think, David, take care, Tanis. We'll all be joining you soon by the looks of it. Riots in Italy, I thought I heard, she says, Tanis. And yeah, that's it. And that just about brings us back. But I just, there are a lot of people, well, no, there's Kazimak and Tanis in the comments that are pointing out to me that Theresa May, bless her cotton socks, bought a bunch of body bags last year. I don't know the truth of that. I've asked for a link, and if anybody has got a link, then I'd be interested. I don't know what to think, except that she is a traitor that tried to give away our sovereignty to the EU with that withdrawal agreement, which Boris signed in Mark III, so voted for, rather. And so, you know what? Those folks that say Brexit's done, you're wrong. You're wrong. We're not out of the EU. We're not out of the ECJ. Well, technically we are, but we're not out of the ECJ jurisdiction. We're not out of the single market. We're not out of the customs union. And until we get those three things, we are not out of the EU. Wake up, all those fake Brexiteers at the likes of the Bruges Group, which is just a Tory blue rinse bunch of old, I don't know, having a clubby chat or whatever, trying to get their candidate voted in, as opposed to trying to get our sovereignty back. Will this be used to keep us in the EU is a very, very good question. I'm very concerned about that. David H. Timms, this whole scenario of where this does go, where I am in Spain, society is very joined up. In Italy, society is very joined up. In the UK, society is largely ghettoized. And I wonder if things aren't going to get quite nasty in places like London, frankly.
I would say they probably are. I think they're already nasty in London without all of this going on, to be honest. I don't want to go to London anymore. I hear the stats on knife crime down there, and it's quite frightening, to be honest. I long for the days when I used to go down there on business trips, and it was all really nice, and it was a very cool experience. going to London, and you didn't have to avoid certain areas. I don't think it's going to get any better, that's for sure. Let's have a whiskey, by the way. Just
yeah, we were going to talk about whiskey, weren't we?
So I decided.
We were. Oh, you're having a whiskey. Good on you. Good on you. What are you drinking?
I have a Glenfiddich, a Corian Reserve. There we go. I'm not sure if you
that
can
looks nice.
do advertising on this.
That looks very nice, sir. So how old is that one then? What's the deal with that?
No, it's not very old. That's 12 years old, but it's about £200 a bottle.
Is it?
And it's a nice little drop.
Go on.
I haven't opened it because I wouldn't normally open bottles that are worth that much, but it was given to me, sort of opened. I didn't pay for it. It was gifted to me, and I've drank it more or less to the bottom. There's a little bit left. But,
I don't blame you. I am very, very jealous. I've just finished a bottle of J&B. I mean, which is not a bad mix.
Was that in the last hour?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. No, actually,
David, as you were saying about the knife crime in London.
No, let's talk about whiskey. Shh, Chris,
exactly.
Boozy. My wife found my whiskey bottle, my hidden stash.
Oh, whoopsie.
Yeah.
Did it go down the sink?
No. But I'd already finished the bottle, and I left it in the cupboard because I thought if I throw it away, then she'll, where did that go? But so I left it there, and then she found it anyway. And but yeah, I mean, it's at times like this, you needed Sipple.
Yeah.
Are they not stopping the booze in some places? Are they not? Are there not some countries where they're talking about stopping the booze?
Well, I think a lot of that is like people trying to rile people up, and because to be fair, what else in a lot of ways you're going to be doing apart from having a tipple at home during lockdown? Really, but no. What I was saying, David, about my family, they're actually looking at moving down to Cornwall, and my brother's actually doing long distance lorry driving to actually build up the money, spending weeks away from his family just so they can relocate down to Cornwall and get the kids out of London. Because I remember one week there was something like 15 stabbings in 1 week, 15 stabbings within a 1 mile radius of their block of flats.
Wow. That's pretty frightening. That's frightening to hear, actually.
I bet you've heard this before, David, but we've got Keith D.
Yeah. It's been. It was the thing that was talked about the most, other than Brexit, before the whole virus thing came along. So, yeah, it's just a horrible thing. People who don't live in London tend not to dwell on that sort of news a lot, because I don't know. Say we live in more sensible places, but we live in places that are a more frictionless society, let's say. Mm-hmm. Than some of the areas around London.
Yeah.
But London has basically created its own problems through its welcoming approach of certain types of people. That will continue until somebody else comes along and fixes it.
I think you're
churches are closed, mosques are open.
Well, you know what? I live in Spain, yeah. My wife's from here, so I live in her hometown. We lived together in London for a decade, and I've been over here for about 14 years with her in her hometown. I wouldn't dream of trying to change the way the locals live. I wouldn't want to. I would not want to. Actually, I don't mix with Brits here. I mix with the locals. I don't mix with anyone now at all, apart from you lot. The idea of taking an adopted culture and trying to change it into yours, to me, is evil. Actually, just immoral, highly immoral.
Well,
and that's what's happened. That's what's happened in London. And the politicians, and many parts of the UK, and the politicians. This is what I find incredible and unforgivable. Is that the politicians have encouraged it, have totally encouraged it. No, David?
Can I say that they've encouraged it? I think when we were still acquiescing to the EU, maybe yes, but I think there's a new narrative on its way. I hope it has been delayed somewhat by circumstances unfolding, but we, the public, as a democracy, voted for a Conservative government to enact the actual result of a vote we had several years earlier, because it's the only way we, the people, could get it done. And there's some people who had to put aside their previous, how should we put this, their previous views of how certain party politics work in order to go for a greater goal. So yes, prior to that, I think the EU is responsible for a lot of the shenanigans that we're seeing playing out.
Have you heard of a guy called Coudenhove-Kalergi?
And New Labour.
Go on, Chris. Explain who Coudenhove-Kalergi was.
The Coudenhove-Kalergi plan.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. The plan behind that was to create a new race.
Was it?
An action? Yeah.
I thought it was to confuse the hell out of everybody and basically homogenize us all.
Well, that's the thing. It was to create the Eurasian Eurabian race. Basically to bring Africa, Arabia, Asia, basically create a homogenized race, but in effect that
through political means, not organically, not people naturally, I don't know, meeting somebody
and this is what a lot of people will not talk about, and this is when you actually look at the UN, what the UN says, and we can agree that we agree or disagree about whether the UN's right. But one thing they've got their law on the their rules on the prosecution on the prevention and prosecution of genocide, and if you are to change, if you try to change a culture to remove the indigenous culture and remove the indigenous people, either through breeding programs or basically to try and force the extermination of a people's culture. Through policies. It is by the official UN declaration genocide.
That flies in the face,
Labour, New Labour, with their multiculturalist agenda that they put forward, where every culture is equal, and where they sent parties out to recruit people to immigrate over here, effectively had a eugenics and genocide policy, and therefore Tony Blair should actually be going to the international court, not just for the war crimes, but for genocide.
Yeah, totally.
Or attempted genocide at the very least.
Yeah, I agree. That instead of which he's rolled out, along with his sidekick war criminal Ali Campbell and Gordon Brown and all that, to tell us that because of coronavirus, we need a one world government. And I'm not joking. That's been going on this week.
The borders are exacerbating the problem.
Just as a brief aside, that Coudenhove Kalergi, he was a count, and one of his, kind of one of the guys that loved that guy, his political mentor too, was Jean-Claude Juncker, who said that. Anyway, let's just take a few comments and then maybe go into something a little bit less depressing. Amanda Ralston, Gov 2071. People need to check this out. See all the members. Shocking. Nanobots, really. The downliner Alex Jones claims he'll reveal the identity of Q next Wednesday if Joe Rogan doesn't expose Q before then. Wow. And he also says downliner AJ is the perfect deep state puppet. Now, Keith D thinks that our David here is ZZ Top in the house. David, I bet you've heard that before, mate.
ZZ Top? Seriously?
You need another 2 years.
I have some vinyl albums from them from the 90s, so, I'm quite happy with Sharp Dressed Man. And, Give me all your living, etc. But I don't know, what was the last comparison I had? I was trying to think. I probably looked like Moses or somebody's idea of God or whatever.
Father Christmas. Father Christmas.
He actually looks.
Father Christmas, yeah.
Definitely
Father Christmas.
Mr. Timms looks like, he says David Smith there. He actually looks like another guy called David Smith who goes by the stage name of Darv the Bard, who's a pagan folk musician and a leader in Obod.
Come on.
But yes, the comparisons, the Druid, yes. The comparisons to Father Christmas are actually quite useful if you want some attention on an evening in the pubs from the ladies.
I'll tell you what.
There's a good hint and clue for you.
We could do with a miracle on 34th Street right now. I bet they could in New York. Now, David, how well dug in are you then? Are you kind of... You said you've got food for what? A couple of weeks?
6 to 8 weeks.
6 to 8 weeks. What about you, Chris?
Well, they've... family's just come back from Costco, so we're pretty... we always have plenty of food. It's my in-laws' generation. Make sure that the cupboards are always full because you never know what's going to happen. We're also in California. We get earthquakes and disasters, like they're
floods,
like they come out of cornflakes packets,
sandstorms.
So we effectively are prepared for a disaster, but as per the course.
Yes. Yes. Now, okay, because David said that, well, he brought up, I don't know, a little while ago, the potential concern of food shortages. And I wanted to take him to task on that because, David, whilst obviously, naturally, that is a worry, and the government have said, or somebody said, some concern about power cuts and stuff like that. I don't quite get that because sure, people are getting this coronavirus thing, but most people are getting it, and it's the symptoms are not that diminishing in terms of being able to go to work or whatever, or at least not for long. I would have thought that food production would just carry on. It should be all right, and the same with, for example, keeping the power stations running. No, am I missing something there? In your opinion, David?
Well, I live in a world of changing possibilities, so I'm just looking at this as like a dynamic jigsaw puzzle, and how things continually run and flow. So yes, food's good at the moment. Power's good at the moment. I live in a rural sort of part of the countryside where power cuts for me do happen a couple of times a year, but they get on top of it relatively quickly. But when they have enough day, then they'll have to bring a generator into the village. And it might take a day or two, and you run out of power for that long. So I'm kind of used to it. You guys probably aren't used to having power cuts, not since the 70s when you used to put the 50p's in the meter.
That's right.
Like I remember my dad doing and me doing when I was a young kid.
I do. I remember my mum walking around with a paraffin lamp during the 3-day week. Carry on.
So these things are probably going to be quite new to people when they happen. They're used to living in a first world country where the lights are always on, and the Wi-Fi is there, and you're straight onto Facebook and Twitter and everything else, and you take everything for granted. And it's circumstances like these that just highlight how weak in parts the system can be, the infrastructure can, and I'll stress the word can be, because none of these things I've said are absolutely going to happen. But as we roll on in the next few weeks, you're going to see a turn downward, a big turn downward. And the media is going to pounce on that, and it's going to broadcast it as loudly as it can. And then you're going to see an uptick in the kind of constraint.
Oh, David, just hold on a sec. Hold on a sec. Please go back from uptick, because you got cut off. You got David, sir. Oh, please go back to where you said that we're going to go downhill. It's going to be pretty horrid couple of weeks or so, and then we're going to have an uptick, and then you got cut off. Then you got cut off.
Waiting for something to happen.
David, telecoms problems here, communications problems. I'll tell you, it's probably partly because everyone in my block of flats is online at the same time, stuff like that. I got a hyper broadband package, actually, funnily enough, just the week before, with a huge upload speed, masses of great big pipe, but then this thing, quarantine and all that, everybody's at home and probably trying to talk to people they're worried about and all that. David, sorry, you got cut off. Started sounding like Sparky the piano about when you started talking about the uptick, and which sounded like the optimistic bit, which is why I want to hear it.
Sadly not, it wasn't the optimistic bit. It's going to be the uptick in the media hype, because the more the graph goes up with the case fatalities, the more media hype there's going to be about it, the more you're going to be scared to go out of your door to catch this thing. And then you're going to get a spotlight on the infrastructure of a country and how it works, how the power keeps on moving, how the food is delivered to the supermarkets. And there are specific stresses within those kind of infrastructure routes that can come under duress. I'm not saying they will. I'm saying it's a possibility, and it's a strong one, especially with supply chains for food. Electricity, you wouldn't have thought there'd be much to do, just sit in the console room all day and just look at buttons. But yeah, if anything were to go wrong, you need men to go out and fix stuff. And from experience my end, that happens a couple of times a year. If there were to be a problem right now, are those people available? Are they coming out? Are they sick? And those questions are going to multiply in the weeks to come, that drags us further and further up this curve. And that's my point.
So I need to get more than my 3 jars of pesto and a couple of bags of pasta. Chris, reality's kicking in. How much prepping have you got, sir? I know you got a load of guns.
Yeah. Well, I haven't got that many. I've got a pistol and a shotgun, and my wife's got a pistol. That's not that many,
right?
But no, we always have bottled water. So if there's a water problem, we've got bottled water. We regularly get it. We've got plenty of stuff, frozen food. So, so long as the power doesn't go out, that stuff's good. But we've got dry goods, and to be to be honest, if it really gets bad, we'll just start thawing the meat, smoking it, and go from there. And we'll just have
Are you still?
meats,
You were talking.
will last longer.
You were talking about heading out to Utah.
Yeah, that can't happen now because I've basically been
muted.
You've
been what? You've been what?
Put under precautionary quarantine by the doctor because I've exhibited some minor symptoms of COVID-19, but not enough for them to test me.
What symptoms have you got?
Oh, it's just a dry cough and a sore throat and achy joints. It's not really a big. It's nothing that's actually stopping me doing anything, but as they say, some people are asymptomatic, and they've decided that I'm not going to work. So whereas I'm an essential worker, I'm not going to work because on the 2 days a week.
Breaking up again. Right. Chris, thank you. I'm going to finish the show in a sec because we are approaching beer o'clock, which is the point of the day when you put a bottle of wine in every room in the house and then you've got your own personalised pub crawl. But anyway, right. So before we hopefully look on a more positive note, and I want to ask David about maybe where we're going to, what possible advantages there could be for the human race off the back of this dystopian time. I'll just take a few comments. No name Nos Logan says my mate had a pay by coin electricity meter at his bedsit in Bristol. I remember them. No name. Kenneth Noel Curran says 1974. Yeah, that's right. It was, wasn't it? 3-day working week. Shaving by candlelight. Alternative to razor blades. I think, Kenneth, you might be a little bit older than me because I wasn't shaving back then. And neither was my mum, but she was walking around with the paraffin lamp. Tanis Pullen says, Jamie, no, but you can make one and cook it. I don't know what she's referring to. Maybe the dog, the cat, the mother-in-law. Phantom Prophet. It's a bad time to be on smart meters for your electric. They can remotely turn the power off. But with old meters, they have to come round your house to physically turn it off. And Carlos says, I remember 50p in the meters and kicking the TV when the reception went. No Name Ross Logan says, the corona is spreading faster on bloody Facebook than it is in the real world because of the incessant media fear-mongering. Yeah. You know, that is something that I have been soul-searching about. And you might have noticed, whilst I did put it up when I was talking about the statistics, I've stopped using that backdrop with the statistics from RILAB, which is a great service, but it's like, I do wonder how much fear there is. So, David, I guess this is a good way to finish off today. I'm trying to be upbeat here. I'm frankly concerned about one or two people I know, very much so. But on the other hand, there are some wonderful things that could come out of this, and actually, you could argue that already have come out of this. No, sir?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you only need to look at Facebook every day in between the whole depressing nonsense to find that people are there sort of putting a brave face on things and cracking jokes. And there are Facebook groups like Rock the Lockdown where they're doing little live performances and having their own discos in their house and just filming themselves and then putting it on. It's a time for people to come together when they absolutely mustn't. So we're keeping our chins up in the very best possible ways, I think, through this, and that's what we are, and that's what we're about, and we will get through this. There is an end point. And there are very few things I would look to China to at the moment, but I would look to their time span, and they are starting to go back to normal, whatever normal looks like over there for them. But people are moving around, businesses are starting to open again, and they seem to have got through the worst. We won't ever hear how many didn't or how it started officially, but life is returning to normal for them, and life will return to normal for us too.
I have to say, David, that they are talking about a second wave there now as well. Apparently,
you wanted to finish on a high. Don't send me
no,
down.
that's right. I'm sorry. Okay. Forget I just said that. We can hear the birds.
You want me to pull apart a global debt bubble of $250 trillion on your next program? I can do that very easily. But
really?
You want to finish on a high, mate? Let's finish on a high.
Yeah, God bless you. God bless you, David. Thank you, sir. Yes, Blitz Spirit. Keep buggering on. Just not with a neighbour, because you're supposed to have a 2 metre, unless you got a very well endowed. 2 metre gap. That has been Daily Chaos. I remain Olly Connelly. I'll see you tomorrow at 5 o'clock. I want to say a big thank you to David H. Timms. Thank you, David. Lovely. Please come on the show again. Really, it's been lovely to share a bit of time with you, sir. Thank you. And I'm very jealous about that bottle of whiskey. I want to say a big cheers to Chris Boozy for popping in too. Boozy, thank you.
All right. That's fine.
Try not to shoot your neighbours.
Cheers, Chris.
And also Jay Carey, who didn't come back, but I've seen him there. Downliner in the comments in YouTube. God bless you. Jay Carey is going to be dailychaos.news webmaster, by the sounds of it. Yeah. And tomorrow, he booked me a guest for tomorrow as well. Mark Windows is coming on, and we're going to talk about, oh blimey, never mind Orwell. We're going to be talking about Huxley. Yeah, I don't think it's going to be quite as whiskey-laced tomorrow. But it is going to be fascinating. So that is 5 p.m. BST. And that's midday in DC. Mr. President, if you want to come on and tell us, if you're going to use this as an opportunity, maybe to, I don't know, knock out the internet and then serve all those indictments, all those sealed indictments. Okay, see you tomorrow, folks. God bless you. Here's to us. And bugger the bug! Bugger plutocracy, I tell you. Yeah.